Over the past year, I've slowly been turning my home into a smart home, and even made a couple videos on how to install Home Assistant on TrueNAS scale and on a Synology NAS device. I want to showcase some of the most useful devices I've installed, but if I'm going to do this, I want to start at the very beginning. If you've heard about smart outlets or smart lights or smart whatever, and you want to learn more about what your options are, or if you're well into your smart home journey and you want to upgrade your smart home from a couple of devices you control through your phone to the next level, then this video is for you. But first, what is a smart home? There might be a better definition out there, but when I say smart home, I'm talking about a centralized system that lets you control devices in your home manually with your phone or tablet, or automatically through scripted automations. So while my Tuya app might be nice because it lets me turn on a smart light, change its colors, or even do some limited automations, it doesn't make for a smart home since it doesn't let me control all my smart devices from a centralized location. Plus, it runs completely on the cloud, but we'll get into that later. A smart device can include things from lights, to outlets, to garage doors, to motion or temperature sensors, to vacuum cleaners, and so much more. The sheer number of things you can control and get data from in a smart home can honestly be overwhelming at times, but there's an old saying that goes, you don't need an elephant all at once. When setting up your smart home, focus just on the most important things you want and add on to your system from there based on your personal needs. For me, the core thing I needed was the ability to open and close my garage door from my phone so I could get into and out of my home on bike rides even when my family wasn't home without having to carry around a pokey garage door opener in my bike jersey. A secondary need was to automatically turn off the lights that my kids had left on in their rooms, driving up my electric bills.
Hi, Dad.
Aiden, the light!
So?
From these two core necessities and lots of time watching what other people did, I was able to establish my 3 essential criteria for any device I brought into my home. It can't interfere with the natural operation of the device, it has to be controlled locally, and it couldn't be too expensive. And I know this last one is a vague requirement, as what is expensive to me might be cheap to you. But it basically looks at the average cost for different smart devices and shoots for the middle ground of any area. But those are just the things that I personally cared for the most and may not reflect your most important needs. No matter what you choose to do with your setup, at the heart of the smart home is a hub. That's a centralized device that all the other devices in your smart home network will connect to and be controlled by. Now, almost every manufacturer of smart home devices offers a hub specifically for their products, such as the Aqara Hub, or the Sonos Hub, or the Singlet Hub. These hubs act as a bridge that connects your smart devices to your home network, sometimes through an Ethernet cable and sometimes wirelessly. If you're just starting off and you bought some smart devices that come with their own hub or app, this can often be enough just to get you started. And yeah, this works well enough provided you're using the same brand for all your smart home devices, and in theory should work even with other brands as long as it uses the same protocol as your hub. In practice, however, things can get a little janky or even flat out not work, which is why I prefer to use a USB dongle like this one and then use an open source piece of software such as Zigbee to MQTT to pair my devices. This does add a layer of complexity to your smart home, and there's no reason why you can't keep things simple and build up your smart home around a specific home automation wireless protocol or even brand. And if you don't want to be locked into a single brand or wireless protocol, but you still want to control your home from a single app instead of lots of different apps for different devices, then you're going to need to look into a unifying smart home platform. These smart home platforms allow you to integrate the different hubs, protocols, or even web services used to control your smart home into a single app. Broadly speaking, there are 4 main options to consider for a unifying smart home platform: Google Home, Amazon Alexa, Apple HomeKit, or Home Assistant. And it should be obvious from their names, but the first 3 are backed by 3 of the largest brands in the world. Also, don't worry, that's going to be the last time I use Amazon's full name, as saying her name in a video like this can annoy a lot of people. Now, I personally do not use any of the 3 big brand name options for my smart home, as all of them to a varying degree or another rely on the cloud and don't allow for true local control. However, they all have the benefit of being developed by huge companies and are a lot easier to set up than Home Assistant. Since I don't personally use them, I would suggest taking what I'm about to say with just a pinch of salt. I've done my best to research everything thoroughly and base my opinions on cold hard facts, but at the end of the day, I haven't personally driven anything but Home Assistant for any substantial amount of time to really understand their greatest strengths and most annoying weaknesses. With that disclaimer out of the way, here are my thoughts on the 4 main choices you have for a smart home platform. HomeKit is the most restrictive of the smart home platforms, and you'll find the least amount of integration options for it. Also, the devices that natively work with HomeKit are usually grossly overpriced with the Apple tax, and have the most limited communication range as HomeKit operates on Bluetooth. On the flip side, it is precisely because of Apple's restrictive policies for apps that the integrations that do exist for HomeKit tend to be rock solid with the minimal amount of setup-induced headaches, and also tend to have the most longevity where even though an integration hasn't been maintained for some time, it still just works as intended. Plus, for many devices out there that don't have an official integration method on Apple's App Store, there are ways to get them integrated into HomeKit, though the steps can be painfully convoluted, and your mileage may vary on its actual successful operation. Though it should go without say that you should always make sure that a new home automation device works with the platform you've chosen to go with. Out of all the options, HomeKit users need to be the most careful in this regard. Now, I have friends that use and love Apple's HomeKit. I am told that it's intuitive and the dashboards created flow very well. You can use your devices using Siri voice commands, but she struggles with interpreting complex instructions. In terms of hub to connect to your smart home devices to, HomeKit makes use of existing Apple products. So as long as your home is already proliferated with Apple TVs, iPads, and iPhones, then HomeKit devices won't need any additional hardware. If, however, you're building up your smart home from scratch and don't plan on buying a bunch of Apple TVs to be in range of all your HomeKit devices, then the HomePod Mini will probably be the cheapest way for you to get up and running. They currently cost about $100 and support the Thread protocol, which in theory will future-proof your smart home for the next great smart home protocol. If you don't want to pay the Apple tax for HomeKit devices, but still want to use Apple's HomeKit platform, there are options to use non-HomeKit devices with HomeKit. For example, Aqara makes a smart hub that allows you to connect much less expensive Aqara devices with the Apple HomeKit platform. And I really can't say this clearly enough. It doesn't matter which of these platforms you go with, they will all support adding devices outside their native protocols. It's just that the different platforms can make it harder or easier on you to add devices outside their core environment. So in summary, Apple HomeKit is expensive to set up if you're not already a die-hard Apple fanboy. Its options for third-party integrations, while prolific, are the most limited, comparatively speaking, and the range for natively supported devices is short. On the plus side, the dashboard looks great, and it's a lot easier to set up and it's very stable. Google Home comes in strong with its built-in support for the Nest ecosystem. And if you have Android devices, then you already have Google Assistant, which does a much better job than Apple's Siri at understanding complicated commands. Google Home also has a much stronger support for integrating random brands into your smart home platform than Apple's HomeKit, thanks to their less restrictive App Store. Of course, though, their less restrictive App Store can also mean that an improperly maintained integration no longer works for the current version of Google Home, or has a less than perfect integration. These issues aren't common, mind you, but it's something to keep in mind when adding a new device into your Google Home platform. Just do your research and make sure there aren't any issues with it, even though it claims to be Google Home compatible. Like HomeKit, devices that work natively with Google Home are Bluetooth based. That means if you want to use only devices that natively work with Google, you'll need to make sure to have plenty of Nest devices spread around your home to act as a nearby hub for them to be able to connect to. The Nest Mini is one such device, and it currently will cost you around $50 USD. But don't go looking for it on Amazon, you're not going to find Nest products there. Now, this is just speculation on my part, but the reason might have something to do with the fact that Nest products so consistently out-review and underprice Amazon's own line of smart home products. Like HomeKit, Google can bring in non-Nest compatible devices into its smart network through the use of third-party hubs. And the user interface for Google Home has recently undergone some changes that make it very pleasant. My main beef with Google Home, however, is the fact that Google has a nasty track record of killing popular apps with little to no warning. In fact, in April of this year, Google announced that it would be ending support for Nest Secure, Google's alarm system. Starting next year, in April of 2024, you will not be able to access Nest Secure from your app. And it's not that it will be incompatible at that point. There's no reason not to let you keep using the products you already paid for. Google's just killing it. And it's not just Nest Protect. There's actually a website dedicated to all the apps that Google just decided, you know what, you're done using and we're shutting it down, despite it being 100% compatible with their ecosystem. As a result, I have a hard time advocating a smart home ecosystem that could just get the axe at some manager's whim, turning my whole smart home dumb, and would personally suggest you avoid Google Home. In summary, Google's dashboard has seen some recent improvements, but still lags behind Apple's. Its natively supported devices are much cheaper than Apple's, and while it has more integration than Apple, the vetting process for those integrations is more lax, and that can lead to issues. More importantly, Google has a bad habit of killing off their own products, so use it if you like it, but have a backup plan in place for whenever Google decides you're done with Google Home. Amazon supports the widest range of compatible integrations of the three big name brands, and those integrations also tend to be more stable and robust than what you would see from, say, Google Home. They also support a wide choice of automations you can set up for those devices, all of which can easily be controlled through Alex. In terms of out-of-the-box compatibility, provided you have an Echo device, then you can connect almost any Zigbee-based device to Alex. And considering how dirt cheap those Echo devices can get, especially on Prime Day, building out your smart home network will be a breeze and light on your wallet. The biggest downside to Alex's app is that the dashboards are the most bland to me personally. They clearly intend you to use primarily voice commands and have a bare bones dashboard available if you want to manually control something from your tablet. Plus, if you're privacy minded, there is the fact that Echo devices listen to you. Now, Amazon claims that no one has access to these recordings, but how much do you trust a behemoth of a company like Amazon? And there was the debacle of Amazon locking a man out of all his smart devices after a false claim of racism against him. They did eventually restore access to his devices after he provided proof that the claim was false, but it's still a giant red flag that Amazon has that much control over the devices you own and will shut you down if they don't like what you do. Still, if I had to pick one of the three big name brands, I would honestly suggest Amazon over Apple or Google. The reason being for its range of support and how low cost it is to get going. To summarize, aside from potential privacy concerns and blandish visual interfaces, Amazon is a rock-solid choice, especially considering the fact that many people already have Prime accounts and Echo devices spread throughout their homes. They offer a wide range of integrations and boast native support for things in the Ring ecosystem. And while they are cloud-based, Amazon's web services run practically everything you do online these days and won't be going anywhere anytime soon. That's the big three name brand options. While they don't offer true local control, they do offer a relatively quick and easy setup. When I set up Google Home in the past, I didn't have to do any sort of setup on a local computer. I did all the setup directly on my phone. And for a lot of people who aren't the most tech savvy but still want some basic control over their house from their phone, this is exactly the kind of setup they want. But if you don't mind just a tiny bit of extra work, there is one last option, and that's Home Assistant. In my opinion, Home Assistant is hands down the best option for unifying smart home platform control all of your smart devices. At least for a given value of the word best. The sheer number of brands and devices that Home Assistant can connect to is truly staggering. It can control your Fire TV, it can control your Roomba, it can look like a console from Star Trek. If your goal is to maximize compatibility with the widest range of devices for your smart home, Home Assistant is the platform for you. And it runs locally from within your own home. You will never ever have to worry about your data being breached the next time Apple or Google is hacked because your data doesn't exist in the cloud with Home Assistant. But that's also the biggest drawback to Home Assistant. With Google, Apple, and Amazon, to get going, you need a single hub, which you might already own, their app on your phone, and you're ready to start setting up your smart home. With Home Assistant, however, you are the one in charge of installing the software. That means you need a computer that is always on somewhere in your home so that your smart home works no matter what time of day. It means you have to install it on that dedicated computer and maintain updates instead of letting automatic updates run in the background. It also means if you want to be able to access it outside your home, there's some extra steps you will have to take. It also means that for every smart home protocol, be it Zigbee, Z-Wave, or even just Bluetooth, you will have to purchase either a dedicated hub for that protocol or a USB dongle and another piece of software to make use of that dongle and get it all working with Home Assistant. And if that seems like a lot more work than using Amazon, Homekit, or Google, you're right. It's more complicated. But the good news here is that Home Assistant has been making huge strides to simplify everything. Gone are the days where you need to know how to properly format text files to do anything at all with Home Assistant. Most things can be accomplished right from the web interface. They even have their own Zigbee and Z-Wave software, so you don't have to install and maintain multiple software packages. You just install Home Assistant, and then tell Home Assistant you want to use their home automation packages for Zigbee or Z-Wave. And that's what I really love about Home Assistant. You get to have complete control over it. You get to make it as complicated or as simple as you want based on your needs. It will take a modicum of extra work that the options from Google, Amazon, and Apple offer, but I see the trade-offs as being well worth it. And that's why I'm going to be focusing on Home Assistant for these videos. We'll talk installation options, what hardware to run it off of, and what kind of devices I highly recommend, and what I really regret buying. But Home Assistant is not going to be the best fit for everyone out there. If all you want is a platform that integrates into the electronic ecosystem you already have in your home and takes little effort to set up, then by all means, use Apple or Amazon, or even if you must. But if you aren't afraid of following some very easy computer tutorials and want more control over your smart home, then I think Home Assistant might be the right choice for you. Regardless of what you choose, at the end of the day, it's your home. So make sure it's working best for your needs, and don't be afraid to try different options out there before locking yourself into one of them. You can have a smart, more efficient home, and I can help you do that. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends. If you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you will, and be sure to hit that bell icon to be notified of all the updates I do on this channel. If you want to support the work I'm doing here, then I hope you'll consider becoming one of my Patreons, where you'll get early access to all kinds of videos. And until the next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.